This is TWiT.
Oh, boy. Oh, let's see. I guess if we stick with Apple, I could mention the fact that Apple is now facing a little challenge in South Korea. I don't know if this has been signed yet. It will almost certainly be signed into law. It's been passed by both houses of the South Korean legislature, requiring Apple and Google to allow third-party app payments. This is something Apple and Google have both fought vigorously in South Korea, trying to protect their 30% cut of all app payments. And I think it's fair to say this is the first domino, because everybody's looking at this, including the FTC and the United States DOJ and Congress. Apple says you're going to destroy this platform. You're going to destroy our security. You can't do this. Google hasn't said much. I don't think, honestly, it changes much for Google since they've always allowed side loading. Apple also says, hey, it's fine. We'll just bill you. So if you are, let's say, Epic's Fortnite, and you decide to use Stripe for in-app payments, Apple says, that's fine. We're still going to bill you 30%. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know what's going to happen in Korea.
So what's that 30% getting you then? I don't understand. I thought the 30% was for security. So if you use Stripe, Apple's still going to bill you 30%.
Yeah, you
but
pay
Apple
30%
says, no,
so you can sell, so you can put it on the App Store. But yeah, I guess this isn't side loading, but I guess you make a point. You know, we have this
stuff drives me nuts.
We have a vicious debate going on at MacBreak Weekly because Alex Lindsay says, "Look, I've sold software. This is a huge improvement over the old system where you'd have to print up discs and put them in a box with a manual and get it on the store shelves, and they'd still take 50% or more to do it. This is a huge improvement. Apple hosts it. They market it for you a little bit. They make it possible, and they only take a mere 30%. It does feel, if you're Netflix or Amazon selling books, it does seem like rent-seeking a little bit, because, after all, Netflix doesn't need Apple's platform to get people to subscribe to Netflix. It's a good question. If Netflix used a third-party, they use Stripe or some other third-party, or PayPal, some third-party's payment system, Apple would be giving them no benefit, really. You know, and why should you? If really the main reason you want to watch Netflix is at home on your big screen TV, but you're buying it on Apple's platform, Netflix loses 30%. It actually costs us in some ways, because many companies, if not all, if not most, will add that 30% to the cost. You'll see the differential sometimes. If you buy on a website, it's 30% less than if you buy it on an iPhone.
If I remember,
that's the argument Epic used.
Right. It's costing consumers.
Years ago, you had to sideload Amazon apps onto iPhones, if I'm not mistaken. Am I remembering that right?
You never could have sideloaded it, but what Amazon did, if you had the Kindle app and you wanted a book, you would have to exit the app.
You had to buy it somewhere else.
Launch Safari, buy it through Safari, then it would be available in your app. And that's what I remember. I think that's still the case for Kindle, not for Audible. Amazon has made some deal with Apple. That's another argument, by the way.
I mean, there's the consistency thing again, right? Like what we're talking about, and these applications of the fees. I mean, we can debate about the amount of fee, which is a different argument, but it is this consistency. And Leo, you're exactly right. Apple did make deals with some companies, and to Larry's point, they were pretty nuclear with Amazon, like no go, until they quietly made some changes in Audible. Now you can't purchase things in Audible, but you can apply your credits in Audible. And there's sneaking things coming into the Amazon app too. So really it's although we could be frustrated at the policies, I'm more frustrated at the inconsistency of the policies. I'm the same frustrated at Facebook, Twitter, and all other big tech companies. I'm sure I'm not the only one here.
I think there's a guy who has a podcast and a newsletter about big technology might agree with you on that. Yeah.
Sorry, Alex, I'm not trying to make your point for you. I'm sure you're far more eloquent.
Come on onto the turf. Yeah, it's great to have you here. No, it really is. No, I think you're making great points. And
I live on the same side of the street, man.
That's right. Apple said this is all about security. So here's an idea. Why doesn't Apple give iPhone users one option to go through Apple Pay and use the App Store payment system and give like a verified check next to it, so you can be comfortable.
I think that's what they're going to do. That's exactly what they're going to do. And then make another one. Yeah, and make another one and say, okay, if you want to take a risk and you're not going to pay as much, go ahead, go in there. I mean, this should be, at the end of the day, about the customers. All these companies talk ad nauseum about the customers, but it's really about their bottom line.
They talk about users.
I will defend. Yeah. I'm going to, since nobody else will, I'll defend Apple.
Go for it.
I kind of agree with you guys, but I will I will take this role because it is an important point. Apple says, look, we're doing what is easiest and best for the customer. Customers don't want these switches. They don't want this confusing. In fact, on Android, you can sideload. You can press a button. Android warns you this is insecure. It's dangerous. In fact, they've even changed its behavior. It no longer stays. The checkbox no longer stays on to buy on third-party stores. It only is for that one purchase. Apple says we could do that, but that's confusing to people. It's not a good experience. And what we want is, and by the way, look, they're not an almost $3 trillion company for nothing. They're for most users, Apple is the painless way to go.
But if security were the only issue, you could have third-party organizations, companies.
I don't think that they say security, but I don't think it's really. I think what they really say is we want the best experience for customers, which includes security, but is more than just security.
But is Apple saying that its customers are sophisticated and smart enough to walk into one of its stores and pay $2,000 for a laptop or a phone, but not sophisticated or smart enough to be able to make a very simple choice between Apple's secure payment system and the rest of the web?
Channeling Tim Cook. That's why they pay $2,000 for a laptop or $1,200 for a phone, because we are going to give them a good experience. We're going to take the stress out of their life.
I have a PC which costs a lot less than $2,000, and I have a web browser which takes me anywhere I want to go. And it doesn't take a genius to know the difference between going to an insecure place to buy your stuff and a secure place, or at least a reputable place. And it seems to me that most iPhone users are capable of choosing whatever source they want to go to of their apps based on, in part, it being reputable. And there are plenty of companies out there that I would trust that could go in the business of selling apps.
You know what app I have on my Mac right now? I'm running the Epic Game Store on my Mac. Shocking.
Okay, but don't gloat, because it's only a matter of time before Apple comes for you and says,
I know.
Because honestly, this was my fear when Apple announced the App Store on the Mac and Gatekeeper, and they slowly whittled away your ability to say, no, I want to be able to buy third. Eventually, it's going to be, for the same reason they do it on the iPhone, look, you can only get stuff from the App Store. I mean, I think a desktop computing experience should be different. I, by the way, now use Linux almost exclusively for that very reason. But there are plenty of people, most normal people, who want simple, clean. And Alex Lindsay is a perfect example. He says, I try to buy everything in the App Store because then when I have a new Mac, it automatically updates. I can buy it once and it runs on all my Macs. It's just simpler.
I guess
Windows has a store. You can buy apps from Microsoft.
Oh, come on. The Windows Store is not comparable to the App Store on the Mac.
No, but I'm saying it's an option.
I think we would all buy Tim Cook's argument here if it was just you paid that $2,000 premium and you got the App Store and it was clean. But the complicating factor here is the fact that Apple does make that 30% on each one of those purchases when you pay through them. And Tim Cook has outlined the fact that Apple's new strategy is not necessarily a device sale, but it's software and services, among which the App Store fees are a tremendous part of that. So, I think that it sort of comes down to, are we buying the company's marketing messaging, or are we looking at the financial statements, or are we looking at what they tell analysts on the earnings calls and giving that more weight, I think, which we should do.
Let me be clear.
And they made
all corporations,
exactly,
if they're doing their job, are doing this. Right?
Totally. No
maximizing profits for the stakeholders and using marketing to make you feel good about it. That's what the job of a corporation is.
Apple does it in a way that I personally feel a little better about. I prefer their products. I prefer the same experience Larry does and others do. But it's the consistency of that applied experience.
Yeah.
And my agency in that experience. I think it takes away my agency in a lot of ways that they don't really tell us or disclose.
Steve Jobs was famous for that. He said his opinion was, we will pick the right way and you will do it that way. Back down to the original Macintosh, which had obscure screws so nobody could open it. Those Torx screws for a long time foiled people who wanted to get into their Macintosh. It didn't last forever, but that was intentional on Steve's part. They said we could put normal screws on there. And he said, no. I don't want anybody opening this beautiful work of art.
And the reason why this is moving from like simple, consumer choice to antitrust territory is because the system has worked well. I don't think anyone's going to argue about that. But does it ice out, potential new businesses and small businesses and end up consolidating all the value that they're creating within one company that's using this approach as, something of a monopoly?
I think you nailed that,
I think that's
Alex.
where Apple's getting into trouble.
And this is something consumers it's not on their awareness.
Correct.
They don't think about, well, why is 0 rating bad for me? They think, well, I'm getting Netflix free on my T-Mobile. That's good. They don't think about the fact that it stops anybody else from doing the next Netflix, a better one. And so the elimination of competition ultimately hurts us, but it may not be apparent. And that's why it's kind of our job to be the sand and the oyster and bug the hell out of you and say, no, you don't want this. It seems like a good thing. It seems like the nice, warm, balmy bath of living in the Apple world is comfortable and cozy, but you have to understand there's a price to be paid for that.
Well, Steve Jobs himself is the king of, being the people that push forward this idea that the customer won't tell you what they want.
Yeah.
You have to give it to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's
wrong.
from a company.
It worked.
No, of course, it worked very well. But yeah, just asking people to raise their hand to come up with the problem, the fact that they're paying a premium on these app stores. We're not going to get far waiting for that.
It's interesting as a user, as what I would call a sophisticated user of technology. Increasingly, I am choosing a path where I get to choose, even if it's more work. That's one of the reasons I use Linux, because I want the agency. I don't like it that Apple takes away my agency. Yes, it's easy, but I want the agency, and I think in the long run that's better for me. Look,
it might be that some of these things are. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are controversial because you are a sophisticated technology consumer, but it might be that we're all more sophisticated than we were a decade ago. And we're all asking questions, or more people are asking questions, and maybe they're asking more and they want more out of big tech than big tech has provided for us in the last decade or so.
Don't you think,
it might be that
it's unpopular for Congress to challenge big tech, don't you think? Maybe not.
Well, look at how Congress challenges big tech. They don't.
They make a lot of noise about it, but they don't effectively challenge it, you're saying. And that's because big tech lobbies like hell and spends especially the telecommunications businesses, spend hundreds of millions of dollars.
But by the way, to illustrate Alex's comment about Steve Jobs, he used to quote Henry Ford saying that if I had asked people what they want in transportation, they would have said they want a faster horse.
Right.
And part of Apple's responsibility, all of tech responsibility, is to lead by showing us a better way. I don't think there's anything wrong at all with that.
Is it their responsibility, or is their responsibility merely to increase profits for stakeholders?
Well, I'm talking about their responsibility to the customer, or certainly what got Apple where they are was showing us a better way. I mean, if you had asked me what I wanted in 2006, I would have wanted the better BlackBerry, because that's all I was thinking about.
You didn't know any better. Yeah.
Apple came up with something that was, miles ahead of that BlackBerry.
There's got to be some middle ground where we can have innovation without crushing competition.
I think we're getting there. Like what we saw with Apple making this move is one step towards that future.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, they're going to be forced, whether it's through court or through public pressure, to step back a little bit from their draconian rules in the App Store. And it's going to be better for everyone. Yeah. And then, we're going to live in a world where it never rains and it's filled with rainbows and innovation.
I live in California where it never rains, so that's not such a great world. But
well, you know what I'm saying.